Hello everyone, it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. Today we will not be going over to my desk. We're going to stay right here face to face. It's going to be a long video, so grab a snack, get in your PJs, put me on the TV, get comfy. I'm going to be answering your questions today. So this is something I've wanted to do for quite a while. I wanted to do a Q&A style video because a lot of times I keep seeing the same question come up and I keep answering it over and over and over again, or it takes a much longer answer than what I can give in like an Instagram comment. And so I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to ask some questions, and so I posted over on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and gave you guys the ability to ask some questions. There were questions all across the board, so we're going to be addressing whether you're a Bible journaler, a scrapbooker, a crafter, just a Christian woman, non-Christian that just has questions. We're going to be talking about a little bit of everything. So I imagine that this is probably going to be at least a two-part video, if not more, so bear with me because there's a lot of questions. And I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask more questions. So if your question didn't get answered or you didn't get a chance to ask a question, you can leave in the comments down below a question and I will get it in the next video round. So we're going to cover a lot. I've kind of like laid out things what I want to answer, and it's going to be kind of all over the place. So let's just jump right in and let's get to know me a little bit. I love watching these kind of videos and just getting to know the people that I follow on social media, and it might just kind of help you get to know me a little bit better and understand I don't know, how I came to be a Christian, how I ended up here on YouTube. Not because I do it all right, because let me tell you, I do it wrong the majority of the time in all aspects. Being on social media, being a Christian, all of it, I mess up. And so I've always tried to be very raw, very real, and vulnerable with you guys so that you can learn from my mistakes or be encouraged. There's a lot of people that don't fully agree with how much I share online. So I try to just lay it all out for you guys so that you can see that I don't live some perfect life. I'm not some perfect Christian wife that's got it all together. I fail miserably every second of every day. So we're going to address some of that and answer some of your questions about all different kinds of things. And we're going to kind of start with one that I saw a couple times and then I've kind of briefly talked about here and there, but really kind of gives you a foundation for how I came to be a Christian and what led to that. So Danielle Blakely Designs says, "You've mentioned that you really found Christ after your sons were born prematurely and sick. What made you turn to him and not away? Also, you mentioned health issues like Raynaud's. Do you suffer from anything else, and how do you cope with health issues in regards to your faith?" This could be a whole video on its own. I thought about maybe doing it as a separate video, but we're going to cram it in here and you're just going to have to bear with me. So yes, I have identical twin boys who are 11. I've talked about them just a little bit. And before I go into the story of them, just know that if you are currently pregnant with twins or think you might have twins, know that not every pregnancy ends in horrible complications like mine was. There are hundreds of thousands of twin pregnancies that go off without a hitch and are perfect and great. So just know that going into this. But so I've been married 12 years. We got pregnant just within a few weeks after we got married, and there are no twins really on either side. I say no twins. There's like some sporadic incidences of twins in distant parts of our family, but identical twins is not genetic. It's fraternal twins that's genetic. So if your brother was a twin or your father was a twin and they were fraternal twins, then there's a chance that you would have twins. But if they're identical twins, that's just a random occurrence. And so there's not really identical twins on either side. So total surprise to us. I went in for my first doctor's appointment where they hear the heartbeat, and my husband was at work, and so my mom went with me, and they had a really difficult time finding the heartbeat at first, and so I was kind of worried, and they finally found it and everything was great. And so I walked out into the parking lot and called my husband and was like, "Oh my gosh, babe, they heard 2 heartbeats. Like, what are we gonna do? This is crazy." Like 100% pulling his leg because there was not 2 heartbeats. There was barely one that they could find. And so we just have a really good sense of humor. He jokes all the time. He does jokes to me all the time. And so I thought it would be funny to pull his leg. So I had him going for a little while and I was like, "No, I'm just kidding. There's one and everything's fine. Everything's good and right on track." And so fast forward, a couple weeks or whatever it is until you have your first ultrasound. And so I worked at the hospital where I was having my ultrasound done. I worked in the emergency room as a unit and admitting clerk, and my mom was a nurse there. So we knew the staff, we knew the lady who was doing my ultrasound, and so it's kind of like a relaxed, fun, we know each other. So we went in there, my mom, my husband, and I, and she puts the wand on me, and instantly she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love these kind." And I was like, "What?" Like, everything's easy to see and everything's great and perfect, and like in my mind I'm just thinking like, oh, it's gonna be an easy day at work for her because everything, like the baby's just all sprawled out and showing her everything. And she's like, no, look, I love when there's two. I was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, I honestly thought that she was kidding with me because like we knew each other. I'm not just a regular patient, so she can joke with me. And at the time I wasn't a Christian, so I said some very not nice kind words to her, like, quit pulling my leg, this is not funny. And she's like, no, look, here's baby A, here's baby B. My husband was like ghost white, had to sit down. Like, we were stunned and shocked. That was not anything we ever dreamed of happening. And so everything looked good. And at that point, like, it was a normal, healthy pregnancy. But for some reason, deep in my heart, I just knew something was gonna happen. Something wasn't gonna be good with this pregnancy, and I couldn't say what, I couldn't say why. I was healthy at the time. My mom had some problems with preeclampsia, but like she'd had pretty normal births, and so I had this feeling. And so I saw a doctor locally, because where we lived at was a very small town. Our hospital couldn't deliver children under 36 weeks because they just did not have the equipment small enough to work on a baby that small. And so because of that, I had a specialist that was about 2 hours away that I saw as well. And it was just an added, because I was had a multiple pregnancy. I kind of pushed to have an extra support there in that aspect. And so just in case something happened, I wanted that backup hospital that could deliver at a higher level NICU. And so kind of went on, and everything was looking great. Everything was fine. They kept telling me, everything's fine, you're panicking for nothing. And so at 6 months pregnant, my husband was laid off from his job, which means we lost our medical insurance. And so living in California, I was able to get on Medi-Cal, which, if you're not familiar, that is a government funded insurance for the state of California. And because it's in California at the time, now things probably have changed since then, but at the time it was very difficult to take that insurance and use it in a different state. So where I lived on the California-Oregon border. And so my small doctor was in California. My specialty doctor was in Oregon. So when I went to go see him, he said, sorry, we can't see you any longer because of your insurance. You're gonna have to figure something out. And I was sassy and bossy and not nice, and also thinking something bad's gonna happen. And so I told him, no, that's not acceptable. I really feel like I need to have a specialist. I really need to have this hospital as an option. So I basically told him, either you can continue to see me on a regular basis, or I'm still gonna show up in your ER in labor, and you're still gonna deliver these babies, and you're not gonna know anything about me. So your choice. And praise Jesus, he chose to make an exception and continue to see me. So they had to adjust things to where I didn't see him as often. I had to see my regular doctor more often. I was like, fine, whatever. But he kept saying, everything looks fine. Everything is fine. Well, at 28 weeks, I went into preterm labor, and they couldn't really figure out why. There was no obvious reason why. I just thought at the time, I was small, petite, I only weighed like 120 pounds, and so I thought, well, I just can't carry two big boys, like my body just can't handle it. And so like had to go into the hospital, like stop my labor. I was on bed rest from 28 weeks to 32 weeks. Continuously every week I kept, like, the medication wouldn't work, and I'd have to go in and be admitted and get more medication, and I was put off my job. I couldn't work anymore. I had to be at home, and it was just not good. And the longer you're on that, the less likely the medication works. And so if you have ever been on some of those medications, they make you feel like death. It's not fun. And so at 32 weeks, they were starting to see some discrepancies in the size, but not anything too obvious. And so I actually happened to have an appointment with the specialist in Oregon it was just like a regular appointment. And so I was kind of feeling really crappy that morning. And so it was about a 2-hour drive to that appointment. And I told my husband, please just put our hospital bag in the car. I'm not coming home. I'm not leaving. I don't feel good. I don't know what's wrong. I don't feel good. I felt miserable. And I wasn't really having wasn't in that preterm labor. I just didn't feel good. I'm like, something is wrong. put the bag in the car, I'm not coming home. And so we go to the appointment, and I go into, it's just like an ultrasound, it's supposed to be totally normal. And she goes to do the ultrasound, and she's like panicking because both babies only have heart rates of about 20 when they should be like 160, 180, somewhere up in there. They were heart rates of 20. Just to give you an idea, our heart rates are usually between like 60 and 100. So their hearts were only beating once every or 20 times a minute. So within a minute, they were only beating 20 times. So that's not enough. So they were like trying to move them, trying to make sounds, trying to like get them excited, and they just weren't responding. So the doctor comes in and he's like, just so you know, we're delivering right now. Like this has to happen right now. And so there's just no time to think. There's no time to process. Like, we came in for a regular appointment and we're delivering right this second, and they were only 32 weeks. And so another praise Jesus moment was that his office is actually within the hospital that had that NICU. And so it was only 13 minutes from the time that I was in the ultrasound to the time that I was in the OR having a C-section. And they explained to me, this is going to go very fast. We don't know what their condition is going to be, so we can't show them to you. We just got to get in and do this, and you got to buckle down. And so one of the nurses, I'll never forget, she came up to me when they were prepping me, and she's like, honey, do you understand what's going on? Because like I wasn't crying, I wasn't freaking out. It was just like go mode, like let's do this. And I'm like, no, I get it, but like crying isn't going to make it better. So let's just do this, you know. So my husband used to be a paramedic, and so he actually watched the C-section, which they advised him not to do, but he watched it. And so they're not talking to me, they're not saying what's going on, and I can just see on his face the devastation. And I'm like begging him, please tell me what's going on, because I can't hear anything. The OR is completely quiet. They're not even really conversing between each other, the doctors and nurses. It's just the sounds of them doing the surgery, and that's it. There's no conversations, no crying, nothing from babies, nothing. And so I can tell when they're delivered, my husband just loses it. And so they're rushing them out of the OR, and I'm begging him, please go be with them, because I thought they were going to die. I said, they can't die by themselves. Please go with them so they don't die by themselves. And he's seeing that they look like they're dying, and he doesn't want to be there for that. And so I'm begging him. So he finally goes. And so later on I find out that they end up having to spend between 6 and 7 minutes on each baby, resuscitating them with CPR to get them to come back. They had to be intubated. They were essentially clinically dead. We call them zombies now because they came back from the dead. And they had 2 teams of doctors and nurses working on both of them, and were able to resuscitate them after some time and get them intubated. And so when I got back to the room, they still weren't out of the woods. So what they figured out they had was something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And basically it's like conjoined twins, but their bodies aren't conjoined. They're sharing a placenta. So for all of you that are squirmy about medical stuff, you might want to tune out. But so they shared a placenta, and we're getting unequal amounts of nutrients. So one was getting a whole lot and one wasn't getting enough. So when I went in to deliver, within just a few days, like 4 days, I'd had an appointment. Everything was completely normal. Measurements were fine. Within 4 days, it went to 5.5 liters of fluid on Aiden and absolutely nothing on Connor. So think of a 2-liter bottle of soda. I had 2.5 of those just inside of me on one baby, and then nothing on the other one. And there's a lot of other things that go into it, a lot of other medical things. And so they had grade 4 twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, which is basically almost guaranteed death. Like the babies that are diagnosed with that don't typically survive even being born from that severe twin-to-twin. And so my local doctor actually called me while I was in the hospital and just said, Lindsey, just so you understand, like, I'm looking over everything and we didn't miss anything. I didn't see anything like this. I don't know what happened. He's like, these babies have less than 1% chance of pulling through this. Like this is serious. This is really bad. And so as my family's coming into town, so remember they're 2 hours away, they're like directing them to the NICU to like go see the babies because they don't know how long they're going to make it. And they had a lot of health things. Aiden had a brain bleed. They explained to me they thought that he would have cerebral palsy, that he would never walk, that he would never talk. They didn't know if he would be able to see, be able to hear, all those things. Connor had to have a blood transfusion. Aiden had congestive heart failure. Like they just had a lot of stuff going on. And so it was about 12 to 14 hours before I even got to see them. And I kept asking, like, can I see pictures? Like, what do they look like? What's going on? And like nobody wanted to tell me how bad it was. But by the time I got into the NICU to see them, they've been extubated. They were no longer intubated. They were breathing with some oxygen assistance, but they were already doing better. And each hour they were just doing better and doing better and doing better. And so the doctors really were just dumbfounded. You know, they explained to us like this, they should not be doing this well. And they spent 2 months in the NICU, just basically learning to eat and to grow and to, you know, all those kind of basic things. They did come home with, you know, some minor stuff, but today if you saw them, you would never know. Like, they have asthma, and that's pretty much it. Aiden can walk. Aiden can talk. He was on honor roll last semester. Like, none of the things that they told us was going to happen happened. And so at the time, I wasn't a Christian. I had grown up in and out of church, so I knew about God, but I wasn't a Christian. But I knew at that point, this is 100% a miracle. There's no way. As fantastic as the doctors and nurses are, there were so many things stacked up and so many little details that happened. My appointment was actually scheduled for the following day, and my husband had gotten a part-time job. And it's rescheduled. I had to reschedule my appointment to the day sooner so that he could go with me. If I had not rescheduled that appointment, we would have lost him. They wouldn't have survived that day. And so there were just so many little things, so many little timings, so much that had happened that I just knew, like, this is a God thing. This had to be God. And so I will very vividly remember my family had to go home. Dave had to go back home to his part-time job. So I was in the NICU by myself pretty much for those 2 months. Occasionally people would come and visit. My husband would come, you know, once a week. But while they were still in level 1, that was the first week, they still were getting some assistance. I can remember walking out of the NICU, could see the sun shining through the windows and the dust particles in the air, and in the middle of the hallway, the middle of the hospital, just falling to my knees and just thanking God and praising God and giving my life over to God, because I knew there was just no other explanation for what was happening. And so I knew that I was broken and how desperately I needed Him in my life. And a lot of people talk about their day of salvation and how their day, you know, their life totally made a 180-degree turn after that. My story isn't quite like that. So my husband wasn't really a believer. We weren't going to church. I didn't have anybody in my life that was, and so I didn't have anybody to mentor me. And so even though I would say technically I was saved on that day, it was many, 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 many years before we started going to church and really getting to where we're at today. And so it was a journey for sure, but 100% because of those 2 little boys. And I wouldn't wish what happened to them on anybody else in the world, but at the same time, I'm thankful for it because it drastically changed my life and made me submit to God and give my life over to Him. And so there is a Bible verse, Romans 8:28. Is kind of my verse. Somebody asked what my favorite verse is. It says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose." And so I believe that God makes good out of everything. We live in a sinful, broken world, and bad things are going to happen, but God can take that and change it for good. You know, I look at the boys and what they went through, and medically there's probably explanations for exactly what happened, but for Him to take that moment and what otherwise would have been a really, really terrible, I mean, I still can't walk into a hospital without feeling nauseous from the smell of it because of our experience there. But knowing that He took that and made something good drastically changed my life through that. You know, you think about some of the horrible things you might be going through, whether it's a cancer diagnosis or something like that, and now, yeah, you might have cancer, and I'm sorry, but when you go to the hospital for your chemo treatments, you have the opportunity to witness to those nurses and those doctors, and through that, God can do good through that work. And unfortunately, we live in a world where there is child death and cancer and things like that, but that, you know, there is good that still can come out of all of that. And so that's kind of what led me to be a believer. Also, Danielle asked about other health issues kind of along down the line, and I've mentioned that in videos here and there about Raynaud's. Yes, I have Raynaud's. That's a autoimmune disorder. It can stand alone, or it can be tied to other autoimmune disorders. I kind of have tested positive for some things like lupus and negative for things, and it's just kind of a weird mess. They don't really know, but so I do have that. I did have a stroke 2 years ago. Some of you might remember that because I was on YouTube during the time, not when I actively had the stroke, but in the aftermath of that, dealing with my speech and memory and some of the things that went along with it. I was very, very lucky that I didn't have any lasting effects from the stroke. I had to go through basically a year and a half of just crazy testing and trying to figure out what happened. And the area where I had my stroke is a very critical area where it controls your breathing and your heart rate and stuff like that. And so it really could have been devastating, but it wasn't. And so again, using that for good, that I can just power through that, and that now I can relate to some of you who have health problems. And there are days when it's not easy to get out of bed, but I do. And so that stroke kind of exacerbated the migraines that I've had since I was a young child, to the point where I now have a special team at UCSF that I see and have to have treatment for those. I have a headache every single minute of every day. It never goes away. Migraines come and go, but the headache after the stroke has never gone away. And so I'm just kind of living with that and figuring out that this is my life now, and I can either stay in bed and be sad about it, or I can push through and function. And some days I choose to stay in bed and not function, but most days I can get up and function. So there's kind of the boys and their history. And with the health stuff, somebody had asked if we planned on having more children or if we have other children. Nope, no other children, just the boys. We didn't know it at the time, but turns out that I wasn't able to have more kids as a result of some things that happened in the C-section and some other things I've had go on. And so we tried to have more kids and could not. And then when I turned 30, so almost 3 years ago, I had a hysterectomy because they found some other things going on. And so I no longer have the parts to have kids. So no more babies for us. And again, God works for good. God knew, because he's all-knowing, knew that that was going to happen. And I had 2 babies at once. So and we initially said we only wanted 2 kids, so that worked out. So that kind of leads to how did you get into Bible journaling and how were you introduced to it? Because it was many years before we started going to church. And I've talked a little bit about that here and there also, that my husband and I went through some really terrible marriage struggles in 2013, we were on the brink of divorce, and we went to marriage counseling, and he gave his life over to Christ, and we started going to church. And I still wasn't feeling like I knew the Bible or had a good study routine done. And so, people asked me about my study routine and things like that. I didn't have one. My Bible stayed in my trunk. It never left my trunk other than to go into church with me. I didn't take it into the house with me. I didn't read it. And another God moment, because I at the time had an Etsy shop, and I was creating wood signs and jewelry dishes and things like that. And I've always been kind of crafty and scrolling on Pinterest. And it just so happened that I had an acquaintance from high school. She was a friend of a friend in high school, and hadn't talked to any of them in very many years. But I followed her on Pinterest for whatever reason. And she actually was pinning pictures of Bible journaling entries. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I'm crafting. I love crafting. I'm trying to study my Bible more and I don't understand it. And this person's painting in their Bible. What is that? So I dug in, spent all day trying to figure out what it was. This is back in 2015 when Illustrated Faith was still in an Etsy shop, still super small. And so I stumbled upon Illustrated Faith, ordered a Bible journal or a journaling Bible, and instantly just dug in. And so within a few months, I had my YouTube channel started. Within about 6 months, I started teaching Bible journaling workshops all over California. And it just has drastically changed my faith life. I know Bible journaling isn't for everybody, and some of you watching this might not be here for the Bible journaling questions, but it's drastically changed how I relate to the Bible and how I connect with God, and I am so very thankful for that. And again, all God timing and how he orchestrated all of that. So that's how I discovered Bible journaling. And so for those of you, as a little side note, that question whether you want to post your pages on social media, because I see some of that sometimes. Yes, I believe that there is a private, intimate part of a relationship with God. But I also look at, if that gal had not pinned those, I may never have discovered Bible journaling. I may have now that it's, even more popular, but I may not have found that, and it may not have made the changes in my life where I have a desire to be in my Bible every day. And so just think about that. When you think about whether you want to post something, your post might be the post that changes somebody's faith walk and their life. I mean, and I know that sounds drastic that some painted flowers in a Bible could do that, but it can, and you just never know how God can use that in somebody else's life. So just consider that when you think about posting your pages. Next up, Erwin Newbie 1 says, what does your daily routine, or what does your daily routine look like for you? You're a stay-at-home mom, correct? Yes, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So how do you balance your devotion time to work time to mom life duties and then family time, and then still have time, energy to share your talent with us? Let me just say that I do not have it perfected and that I fail miserably every single day. So I don't have like a set routine where I'm like, okay, I wake up at this time, I go into my office from this time to this time, I do kids from this time to this time. Because like I said, I am a stay-at-home mom now. I do this full time. And I am very, very blessed that my life is in a position that I can do that, because not everybody can Bible journal as much as I do. And that comes from a few different reasons. One, I don't have tiny little babies. So a lot of you out there are in the stage of your life where you are currently pregnant or have a new baby or have toddlers or non-school age children. And there is no way I could do what I'm doing now 6 years ago or 7 years ago. I have 11-year-old boys. They go to school all day. They also can make a sandwich by themselves and kind of function by themselves for a little bit of time. So I try to do work stuff while they're at school, but like right now they got out early, they're playing Xbox in the room over trying to like cough quietly and talk quietly, and I can know that they're not going to kill each other for a small amount of time while I film. So that kind of helps that I do have older children. It also helps to have a very, very supportive husband with everything we have been through, and let me tell you, our marriage has not been perfect. The last few years he's just been a huge help, and he understands that this is my job now. So it's the same as if I went to a 9-to-5 out of the house. And so this does financially help support us. And so when he's home, he understands like this is me going to work. And so he does help with the kids. He helps like if I have a deadline that I need to meet for a team, that he will make dinner that night. The first of the month is always kind of crazy because there's a lot of releases. And so he's, you know, doing housework and helping go do grocery shopping and helping with the kids and that kind of thing. So I'm very lucky in that sense. And that just kind of comes from our family dynamics and how it works. Now, as far as juggling everything else, it is hard. I do have church ministry that I do. I have, you know, my kids' school projects and all that kind of stuff. And so I juggle it as best as I can. And a lot of it's time consuming, a lot of stuff that you guys don't see. I get questions about starting a YouTube channel, or you want to do a YouTube channel, which I think is fantastic. I would encourage you to. But it does take a lot of time. You can, especially when you get to doing it the way that I do it now. I didn't do it the same way when I first started. When I first started, it was just my cell phone. I would film a video, probably wouldn't even really edit anything, and then just throw it up onto YouTube. Now I, you know, have lighting and I film it and then I edit it and do voiceovers and do the thumbnail photos and the descriptions and all that kind of stuff. It just takes hours and hours upon hours to work out. And so it just kind of depends on what level you enter into it. But as far as Bible journaling through the day, or even scrapbooking, let's say you're not a Bible journaler, just finding time to scrapbook, you just have to find a little niche of time and be intentional about making that time for yourself. So if you've got little kids, maybe it's getting up earlier than they do, or sometimes for me, it's staying up late. I'm a night owl, and so I will wait till everybody goes to bed, and then that's my time that I create and spend time. And so you just kind of have to figure out what works for you, and just know that yours is not going to look like mine. You may not be able to do as much as I do just because our lives are different. And I sometimes put priorities in the wrong place, for sure. There are times that, you know, I'll spend hours in here putting together a video while my kids are playing Fortnite in the other room when we probably should be outside doing something, but I'm choosing that. And so I do not always get it right, but it's just another like God thing. I say, like, he's blessed this ministry and giving me the ability to have a lifestyle that can give me the time to do it. Let's see, Megan Gilman says, hey girl, my question is, how do you lead a Bible journaling group? So I have taught several different Bible journaling workshops. Mine are usually geared towards like beginners, and I haven't done one in a while. So if you want a workshop, reach out, let me know. We can talk about that because I love teaching them. They're fantastic to do. And so if you are wondering about doing one, go for it. It can be a lot of work, but it's so rewarding, especially if you're in an area where Bible journaling isn't super popular. Like California is a dead zone for Bible journaling. There's hardly any Bible journalers. And so this question can be a video in its own. So if you want more information about leading a Bible journaling workshop, let me know down below, and I'll do a specific video for that. And there is a Facebook group if you're already teaching and leading workshops and need resources. I'll put that Facebook group down below. It is specifically for those who are already leading groups, so just know that. But if you're interested in it, then let me know and in a comment down below, and we'll put together a specific video for that. Okay, next up, Jennifer Gentry says, I've heard you say a few times you use commentaries along with your study time in your Bible. I love to know some of the commentaries that you use. So yeah, when I'm prepping for a video, or even just in my regular study, my Bible is my #1 resource, so just reading the text in the scripture. But I do use a lot of other outside resources just to kind of help me, because I'm not super educated about the Bible and I need some help from people who are. So Blue Letter Bible app is a great resource. I will link that down below for you guys. That's an app that you can get on your phone. I think you can also just access it online. And you have just the Bible on Blue Letter Bible app, but they also have commentaries. And what commentaries are educated Bible scholars who have researched the Bible for way more time than I ever could dream of, and then they commentate, they interpret different things in the Bible and give their opinion about it. So just know that it's not scripture. They are very, 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 very educated, but I usually look at several different commentaries. I don't just look at one. So I can look at those commentaries. You can get commentaries online, so if you just search like John 3:16 commentary, it'll come up with different commentaries. Again, I would suggest looking into several of them and not just one. Another resource that I use is gotquestions.org. That's fantastic for especially big questions. Like if you're wondering, is baptism required for salvation? Can you lose your salvation? What is Lent? What is Advent? Some of those types of questions. Gotquestions.org is fantastic. I'll link that down below. That's one I use all the time. Or just Googling. And Google can be a little bit difficult because you kind of get a mix of anybody and everybody out there can say whatever they want. So usually when I'm doing research, especially for a video on a certain text, scripture, I will Google it, and then I will look at maybe like a dozen blogs or articles or whatever it might be, and kind of try to weed out the crazy, kind of stack it to scripture and see what's scripture based or what scripture supports with their commentary, and then what's just their opinion and what's, you know, kind of out of left field. I also use a Zondervan study Bible. I'll try to link one down below for you guys that has like commentary inside the Bible itself, which is excellent. Especially, I love having that Bible when I'm going to Bible studies or small groups, and you know, they're asking a question about scripture and I'm like, I don't really understand it. Well, I've got that commentary right there that I can look at. So that's really helpful. But also just reaching out to your pastor, having a relationship with a pastor on staff. It may not even be the head pastor. They may even have like some pastors on staff that you can talk to and ask questions. That's what they're there for. And remember that they're man. They're not going to be perfect. But there's lots of times, especially at the church that we're at now, poor pastor, I'm like texting him, okay, what do you think about this? What about that? What is this? Like on Facebook, okay, what do you think about this? What about this article? What do you think about that? So just asking questions and having those conversations, and that's kind of what I do. And I'm sure I get it wrong. I'm sure I've said stuff. I know I've said stuff on here that was wrong. And so that's why don't come looking to me to be a Bible teacher, because that's not what I am. I'm not pastoring or anything like that. I'm just sharing my experience and the knowledge that I have and my thoughts on things. And I would suggest digging in and really just digging into a lot of different options and looking at a bunch of those. But I'll link those commentary resources down below for you guys. Starling 301 says, have you taken watercolor classes or are you self-taught? No, I have not taken any formal watercolor classes at all, any kind of art classes. When I was in high school, I lived with my mom, and she was very like, you need to go to college and you need to get a job to support yourself, and art's not going to be that. So like I wasn't even allowed to ask about it. Like it was just assumed that people who go get art degrees don't really care if they have a successful life, which is not how it is. And I really wish I would have taken more art classes. So I didn't do that. I did take a yearbook class, and that did help me with like photography, with copywriting, and also like understanding layout a little bit, like what's just aesthetically pleasing to look at in a loose way. It was a yearbook class. In college, I took several photography classes. I was really into photography. I kind of dabbled in like doing like photography as a business when I first came to, like, lived where we live now with my big boys when they were babies. And so I do use that skill. But as far as like painting and all that, no, I would say go to YouTube school. The school of YouTube is what Tanya Hamilton calls it. I watch card makers, scrapbookers, mixed media artists, art journals, watercoloring tutorials, and I just absorb as much as I can and practice and try to emulate and self-taught 100%. And if you look at my artwork from when I started to now, it's come a long way. So like practice, 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 practice. It makes a big difference. And I really wish that I would have taken art classes, but I didn't. Instead, and to answer one of the other questions I saw in here, I actually went to school for nursing, so I started college my sophomore year of high school. I started taking college classes, and my goal was to be a nurse. My mom was a nurse, and so I went to school for way too long. I took a lot of science classes and nursing style classes, and I was one class away from entering into the registered nursing program, and I stopped and decided to stay at home with my family and pursue other things. And I wouldn't change that experience, but somebody mentioned that they see a lot of like nursing shorthand in my Bible journaling and asked if I was a nurse. And that's funny that you picked up on that, because I don't even think of it as like nursing shorthand. I worked in the medical field for about 10 years. Like I said, I worked in an emergency room. I worked as a medical receptionist for a while. I worked for a physical therapist for a little while. My husband was a paramedic. My mom is a nurse practitioner. So I've just done medical for a really long time. And so that's just kind of ingrained inside of me. But nope, I'm not a nurse. That's just didn't work out for me, and that's not what I'm doing. So, but that's funny that you picked up on that. So no formal art training, and I'm not a nurse for my day job. Haley Elise Meeks says, where do you find a good deal on alphabet stickers or even just craft supplies in general? I'm semi-new to Bible journaling and I want to start a stash. And I've seen a little bit of this question in multiple ways. So there isn't really like a Bible journaling store that I go to or anything like that. People will ask like, where's the Bible journaling aisle, or where do you find, and that's not really a thing. That's not, By the Will for God probably is the closest you're going to get to a Bible journaling store. So her Etsy shop, pretty much everything she carries in there is specifically in there for Bible journaling, but it's not called Bible journaling markers or Bible journaling paint or anything like that. It's just products that we've all figured out work for Bible journaling, and then you can go to her shop and you can find it. And it's funny, she'll list a bunch of things that I mentioned in my videos, random stuff. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think she's got a T ruler in there, different gessos, like just different things like that that are just in different areas of the craft store, and she's all put together in her Etsy shop that you can find for Bible journaling. She's got great deals on big brush markers, Neocolor 2 crayons, gelatos. That's my go-to place for ordering those items, and that kind of thing. I don't really shop a whole lot in like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, and those stores anymore. One, because I have a lot of stuff. And so when I go into those stores, I pretty much have the stuff that I would want. My go-to resource for ordering now is scrapbook.com. So between By the Will for God and scrapbook.com, those are kind of my go-to places for getting supplies and just using whatever. I think that for a little minute there, companies were producing Bible journaling products. Like there was like a Bible journaling gelato kit and like things that were titled Bible journaling, because I thought they probably thought they could get on the Bible journaling bandwagon. But I think what happened was Bible journalers discovered we can use whatever we want. It does not have to be specific to Bible journaling. So you can use card making stamps, you can use scrapbooking die cuts, you can use pattern papers, you can use all these things in your Bible. And so there was no need to have like a Bible journaling aisle. But it can be a little bit frustrating because when you go to Hobby Lobby, like the gesso and watercolors in the fine art section, and the distress ink server in the scrapbooking section, and it's just kind of like everywhere, which makes it kind of hard. And so I do a lot of my shopping online, scrapbook.com. Tuesday morning is fantastic for deals. It's like Marshall's or TJ Maxx, where you kind of have to dig through things. They change out every week, but you can find like crepe paper products. You can find Illustrated Faith products sometimes in there, and so you can just kind of dig and find products for a good price. So I hope that answers your question. This one was probably the most asked question. So Linda Wilson says, I'm setting up a craft room. I was wondering if you have any ideas for storage. Also, if you've ever done a tour of your craft room. So if you'll notice, a lot of my videos lately have had my office in the background, which is new, and it's not done. I know I keep telling you guys, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I will do a full craft tour. The problem was I last year worked my booty off to save money to redo my craft space, because my craft space is actually pretty large, and it can be expensive to do. I live about 4 hours from IKEA, so I either needed to drive to IKEA or pay the $200 to have things shipped. So I worked my butt off, saved money, and got like the Calyx unit. I got a couple other things, and then we, at the end of the year last year, had 50,000 things go wrong. We had to buy a new washing machine, a new stove, a new microwave, a new crock pot, tires on both cars, and travel out of town multiple times, all within like 2 months. It was horrible. So that drained my craft room account. And so like this shelving unit back here, this one here will be replaced with a Calyx unit. I have another Calyx unit I want to set up. And so there's just a couple little more details, and I want to make sure that's all done before I do the tour, so that it's like, it's done and that's it. And that could just be until I move to a new house. That's going to be my craft tour. And so in that video, I'll show storage. I'll show where I got everything. I had questions about my lighting and my camera and all that setup. All of that will be in that video. So hopefully it will be soon. Shop my affiliate links. It'll be sooner, because then I can save money faster. But it's coming, I promise. Jennifer asked, I'm a total newbie, and seeing your channel, it's hard to not want to immediately buy #allthethings. Nothing bad about that at all. I love all the things you have, but what would you say were some of the best beginner items as far as user-friendly for those of us who might not be that artistically gifted to just pick up a paintbrush and go? And I think this kind of goes, this could go for both Bible journaling and scrapbooking. But as far as Bible journaling goes, I did do a series titled Bible Journaling for Beginners, I think. There's 3 videos. I'll link them down below. I looked at different like Bibles and journals, different art products, and so it just kind of gives you an overview of those products, so you kind of have an idea of what they are and what they can be used for before you go out and shop for them. I don't have like a Bible journaling kit for newbies, because I think it really depends on your style and what you're looking for, and you know, whether you want the full page that you get in an interleaved Bible, or the large margin of an illustrating Bible, or the smaller margin of a like there's just so many different options even in that aspect. And then you get into, do you want watercolor, do you want markers, do you want scrapbooking paper, do you want, like there's just so much. So I would encourage you to go to a Bible journaling workshop if you have one locally to you. That gives you the opportunity to kind of play with product and test it out. But I would just kind of sit down and figure out what's going to work for you. If you really want to learn watercolor, then kind of look at watercolor videos, maybe get a cheap set of Michael's watercolors and practice with that. And then you can invest in some nicer watercolors. Maybe you already have some pattern paper in your stash and some die cuts. Start playing with that and see how that works in your Bible. And so it's really just going to depend on you and your style. And it can be a little bit pricey. I'm one of those that felt like I needed to try everything before I figured it out. I will say, and there was a question about like what had a lot of hype around it that I jumped on the bandwagon and discovered wasn't for me. Gelatos, 100% gelatos. Gelatos, and that answers another question too, was like how I ended up on YouTube. Gelatos was one of those things that just took the Bible journaling world by storm. Everybody was obsessed with them, wanting to use them. They're still obsessed, still using them. And they are probably my least favorite product to play with. And I'm so embarrassed to say that, because I give you swatches, I talk about it on my show. One of my most watched videos on my channel is a gelato video. And so that's how I ended up on YouTube. Back when I started, I was looking for videos on how to use gelatos and looking for videos on how to do, you know, certain techniques. And there weren't videos really for that, especially in Bible journaling, but even gelatos, there weren't like really a whole lot of videos. And so I thought, well, I'm going to figure out how to use them, and then I'll put the videos out there to have resource for somebody else. And so that's what I started doing. And so gelatos just, I think that they're intriguing, because if you're not used to art products, if you're new to that world, then they kind of do all the things that you didn't even know art products could do, like being water soluble and the things you can do with them through stencils. I'll link a Tip Tuesday all about gelatos down for you guys if you've never seen gelatos. But every workshop I do, gelatos are like, oh my gosh, gelatos are amazing. And so I don't know, that's probably one of those hyped ones that I'm like, I don't really don't really like them. So because I have other products that do what they do and do it better. Like Neocolor 2s I think are better than gelatos. They do a lot of the same techniques and they're easier to ride over. They're not like flaky. They have that more controlled tip. They're just, I don't know. But if you love gelatos, you do you and you keep doing gelatos. It's okay. But I don't really like them. Let's see. Sarah Parsons, this is a really good question. She says, I don't know how to word my question, but she words it perfectly. She says, I'm interested in knowing if there were certain things you did that helped increase your chances of being chosen to join different design teams. Did you always submit yourself to join, or did they reach out to you? That's a really good question. So if you didn't know, I'm on several different design teams. Technically, I'm on Creative Retreat Kits, By the Will for God, the Wild Hair Kits, and Felicity Jane. Those are the technical design teams I'm on. But I also do launch promotion for Dayspring, for Illustrative Faith, and for Purpose Driven Essentials, and then some others here and there. But as far as creative teams go, that could be like a whole separate video also, and there's ladies who have done separate videos on that. And my very first design team that I was on was Documented Faith. I don't think Documented Faith really does anything anymore. I think they've kind of revamped and gone in a different direction, but that was the first design team. And typically how I do design teams is I look for design team calls. So usually the companies will do like every 6 months or every 3 months or maybe once a year, they do a call for applications for their team. And I would encourage you to follow the companies that you love. And that's a whole nother thing, is like, I have companies that I just love. I love Create Paper. I love Maggie Holmes. I love, their Illustrative Faith. There's just certain companies that Felicity Jane, I was subscribed and buying their stuff before I was on their design team. And so I followed them on Instagram and then saw when they had a design team call. And so their design team calls, every one of them does it a little bit different. They usually require you to, like, specific things that it's like an application process. They tell you, we want your name, your social media, some pictures. Sometimes they want pictures of you using their products. Sometimes they don't care if it's their product or somebody else's product. A lot of the ones I've applied for, I didn't really have a lot of their product to begin with, like Creative Retreat. I didn't really have any of their product when I applied for their design team. I just shared examples of my techniques and my style and submitted that, and then kind of went from there. And so everybody's going to be kind of different. Some of them want you to have a blog. Some of them only care if you have Instagram. Some of them want you to have YouTube. Some have, like, you're applying for their video teams, like Creative Retreat. I specifically do videos for them. And some are just like blog posts. And so everybody's going to be a little bit different. I will say for all of those going into it though, be authentic and be genuine. Pick companies that are aligned with you and what you love and what you think your audience will enjoy, because let's just be real for a second about creative teams. It's marketing. It's a billboard. You are a billboard for those companies, because and I love the companies that I work for. I loved them before I worked for them, and so that's why it works for me. But ultimately, you are a walking billboard for them. You are in an agreement with them that they are going to send product to you, and in return, you are going to promote that product so that hopefully other people buy product from them. And so they're looking to see, are you going to be a good billboard? Do you take good photos with good lighting? Do you write good descriptions? Are you capable of writing blog posts? Can you do videos? Not all of them require videos. A lot of them don't require videos, but a lot do require blog posts, which is not a strong point of mine. My video is definitely how I enter the doors. Like, here, I can't really blog right, but I can do videos. Well-lit photos, good videos, and just your presence and the connection that you have with your audience. If we looked at your Instagram, are you a positive influence? Are you interacting with your subscribers? Or are you a negative Nessie who uses raunchy language? Well, they're probably not going to want to use you to promote their stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind, that really it's, that's what they're looking for ultimately. And also picking and choosing things that fit with you and your style. So when you look at the design teams that I work for, they seamlessly mesh with my style and the things that I like to do. I get requests. And this was another question, like, do they reach out to you or do you reach out for them? It kind of goes both ways. The ones I'm on currently, I reached out to them through their design team call and applied. But I daily get emails, and this is just part of the online world, of companies wanting to partner with me for their product. Watches, weight loss teas, planners, I I'm trying to think, just random stuff that like, yeah, I could agree and promote it, and you guys would go, Lindsey, you're not a fashion blogger. Why do you have shoes? Why are you talking about shoes? Like, that's, you know, and I'll talk sometimes about like the t-shirts from Dayspring because they're faith-based t-shirts. Like I kind of lump myself in like Christian lifestyle is kind of where I come from. And so I will do a little bit of that kind of stuff with Dayspring, but like a watch company, yeah, I could put a watch on and have it in my video, but that just doesn't, that just feels scammy to me. So that I choose not to do that. And so for you, you have every right to make that decision that maybe you want to do that. But just remember your relationship with your followers and how you want to honor that and respect that. And so it is a business when you get into those kind of design teams, because ultimately what they're wanting to do is funnel people to their business to buy their product. That's why that there's design teams. So I love the teams I work on, not just because of their products, but the people that are behind them. I love them. I've been like with Creative Retreat for 2 years and love what they do, and have been very specific about what I choose. So you just need to look at those design team calls and see specifically what they'll be asking for and what you need to submit for those teams. And there's all kinds of information online, like giving you suggestions for how to word that. And if you want a cold email, I've never just like outright asked. I've asked for affiliate connections, but not design teams. But you can just say, hey, like, here's a look at my stuff. This is what I do. I really love your product and I think it would work well with what I do. Do you have an opening on a team? Or maybe you do guest spots on your teams. I mean, just be real. Like and it might not be professional, and I don't know, I haven't asked the companies I've applied for like what they think about it, but I try to be authentic and real. And the authentic real me, like, uses emojis and laughs about things and makes jokes and is sarcastic. And so I put a little bit of that into my email so that you are a person that's connecting with them and not just one of 500 applying for that position. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's see. Handmade from Lisa says, I'm starting to actually decorate in my Bible and not just journal my thoughts. What's the best kit for the cost? I'm on a budget. Thanks for your inspiration. You are why I started to Bible journal. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Best kit. That's a hard one. And a lot of you asked that question as well. And I don't think there's any one best kit. I think that that's why I do unboxings. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Lindsey, you're just always unboxing and trying to sell stuff. And it's not that at all. It's that I want you guys to see what comes in those so then you can make an informed decision about what's going to work for you. Whether you want maybe deep devotional content and a lot of product, then you're going to pick Illustrated Faith or By the Will for God. If you don't have a lot of time on your hands and you want a shorter devotional, and maybe you already have a lot of product or you don't want a lot of product, then go for Creative Retreat kits or an online one like from Messy Bible. And that might work better for you. So you just need to kind of look and see what you want and what you need, and then kind of pick based off that, as well as like the aesthetic of the kits. You know, Illustrated Faith has a very like bold, vibrant, graphic style, whereas By the Will for God can just be a little bit more like softer and kind of vintage sometimes, and it's just a different vibe and feel to it. So you just kind of have to look and see, or maybe, and it's okay to change. It's okay 1 month to do Illustrated Faith and the next month to do Creative Retreat, and do it that way too, because maybe the devotional content, maybe the subject of it is what's connecting with you, and really that's the most important part. But we're here for the product, I know that, but maybe it's the content, maybe it's whatever the topic of that devotional is, that's what connects for you. And so you just kind of have to look at those, and that's why I do those unboxings, so you can look and see what's going to work for you for that month and then pick based off that. Now, as far as financially best kit for your buck, again, I think that they are very consistent with the amount of product you get for the amount of money that they charge. And so, of course, you know, Illustrated Faith, By the Will for God are a little bit more pricey than something like Creative Retreat kits, because you're getting a lot more product and you're getting a lot more devotional content. So you just kind of, again, have to look and see what's in your budget and, you know, what works for you. But I only share what I love, so just know that. Let's see, how many hours a day do you spend on your work with journaling, filming, etc.? I already kind of answered that. It's like all day, every day. Let's see. How about, what's your favorite Bible journaling supply? What's your all-time favorite? I may have already answered this. My current favorite is like scrapbooking, die cuts, and things like that. And then my all-time favorite is watercolor. This was one, Unshaken Anointed Gilly says, sorry, do you use all of the free kits you receive? I always wonder, and sometimes it looks overwhelming. And I had a lot of questions about what do you do with leftover kits, or do you give away kits and that kind of thing. And so yes, I do get a lot of free product every month, and I don't use it all, unfortunately, and that's just because there's so much of it. And I do a couple different things with it. So I usually will set some aside and let my kids play with it or use it, or, you know, use up things for sure. I also have like a box that I'll put stuff into for my workshops, so then other people can use like die cuts and leftover stickers and things like that. Work great for workshops. I don't do giveaways or sell things, and that's because a lot of design teams have like in their requirements when you're on their team that you're not allowed to sell product that they send to you for free, which makes sense. They're sending you product for free. I shouldn't be making a profit off of that. So to try to even, because I can't always remember what company says what and what the rules are. So my rule is I don't sell that stuff because I just don't know. Also, being on YouTube, I kind of need to have it. So like, yes, I have a lot of stamps back here, but that's so that I can pull them out and compare them or use them or reference them and that kind of thing. And so I do have to kind of hold on to a lot of stuff. But no, I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, can you just do like a grab bag and give it away? Or I get people ask me all the time, reach out, you know, do you have stuff you can give me, or do you have free stuff? And I do try to do giveaways as often as I can. But at the same time too, like my kits are kind of picked apart. Like it's usually like half the devotionals written into and like half the die cuts are used. Like it's not like even a complete NF kit that you could really work with it. So it's probably wasteful, but some things do get thrown away, like if it's just like a handful of things left over, or I know I'm not going to use it again, but a lot of it gets stuck into my class resource box, and then my classes get to use it. Let's see. Oh So Crafty Candace says, where do you see yourself in 5 to 8 years? And that's a good question, because a lot has changed just in the last 5 to 8 years. So I can't even imagine what the future 5 to 8 years is going to be. I really hope that I'm still here on YouTube. I hope that that just continues to grow and that ministry grows, and not just for Bible journaling, but scrapbooking too, and all those other kind of things that I do on my channel. I really hope that that continues to grow. YouTube's always changing. When you look at the back end and all the like formulas that go into who reads it and the AdSense and how you get paid and all that kind of, I know that's really changed a lot, and so it's more and more difficult to have it as a job, you know, financially. But I love doing it. I really am passionate about it. It's hard to tell people. I know it's getting more and more popular, but you know, I'm at a new church and people are like, what do you do for work? Well, I have a YouTube channel. Yes, I'm 32 and that's my job. Like, it always seems kind of weird, but I love it. I love what I do here, and so I hope to still be doing that. I hope that we'll own a home. That's like a deep desire of mine that I pray about every single day. We've had some really big financial struggles throughout our life, and things are getting better, but it's just the idea of owning our home just seems like that's never ever going to happen. And so I would love to be in a space that is ours, and that I can do Bible studies at our house with people and do that kind of thing. And so yeah, that's probably my biggest, is that we would like to own a home. And then yeah, just see, you know, I don't know. I didn't think that I would be here 8 years ago, so God totally surprised me, and here we are. So I don't know. We'll see. What's your favorite Christian-based book? And I saw a couple questions like this, like favorite book. I have a couple. I love anything by Lisa TerKeurst. Uninvited, Best Said Yes. Those are some of my hands down favorite faith-based ones. I love Seamless, the Bible study by Angie Smith. Not just because I'm teaching that one right now. I've taught it a couple times. I've been through it a couple times. That is one that's just hands down. If you are wanting to understand the Bible as an entire narrative, I see this question all the time, like, where do I start? Where do I start reading? Where do I start studying? Where do I, like, all that questions. Seamless by Angie Smith. It just covers from Genesis to Revelation in its entirety, and shows you how the thread of Christ is throughout the Old Testament and New Testament, and kind of oversees like how the genealogy plays into it, and the key characters, and all these kind of things. It's just fantastic for that. And so that's kind of my hands down favorite. I saw another question as far as like non-Christian. Do I read non-Christian books? I actually honestly prefer non-Christian books, which is probably not the answer you guys want to hear or expected to hear. It's hard to find good Christian books that are sound teaching and are also engaging. And so I usually just read my Bible rather than read one of those other books. But as far as non-Christian, I'm a very avid reader, to the point where like I can't pick up a book, or I will just not get anything done because I stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning reading a book. So my husband's super into like fantasy and sci-fi, which totally rubbed off on me. So I'm a total nerd about that, and secretly read his nerdy fantasy books. So like Robin Hobb, and I'm trying to think of, I think it's Name of the Wind. Just some fantasy dorky stuff that I read. Harry Potter. I'm not a Harry Potter like fangirl where I know like every detail of Harry Potter, but somebody asked like what's one of my favorite books, and that series is probably my favorite series. Like I could read Harry Potter over and over and over again and be super happy. So I'm a dork. Young adult. I know it's cheesy and I'm way too old to read it, but it's just light and fluffy, and I read it. All right, this has been a lot of questions. I think this is a very, very long video, so there will definitely be part 2. So if you have more questions that you want answered, because I'm sure I did not touch everybody's, leave those down below. If you have specific things, maybe based off of some of the other things I answered today, leave those questions down below. Check out the links in the description box. I'll try to link everything I mentioned. If I forget something, which I know I will forget something, please remind me and I will go back in and insert it and get that updated for you guys. And yeah, I hope that helps you get to know me a little bit better. Maybe you were surprised by some things or shocked. I don't know. Let me know. Let's have a conversation in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. There will be part 2. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.